To the podcast, Charlotte.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
Good, excellent. So nice and formal today, but I just wanted to catch up with you. Actually, last time Charlotte and I actually met Ben through a launch of a book.
Yeah.
And Charlotte was hosting it in her offices, and I went along to this sort of opening and book launch, and it was really good. And I got chatting to Charlotte and started to find out a little bit about what she does, and I thought it was quite incredible. And also I know about that space. I'm not saying it for a reason, Charlotte, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself. But I'm quite interested in that space, and I think we all are, but I've never seen the background of it. So Charlotte, by all means, go ahead and tell us about what you do and how you run your agency.
Yeah, so hello. I am the founder of SevenSix Agency, which is the home of SevenSix Talent, SevenSix Training, and SevenSix Influencer Network. A lot of 7-6s. When I met you, we were just going through a transition. So we were a traditional influencer agency that worked with essentially brands and influencers, pairing them together. 22, we've had a bit of a reshuffle, just to really. This is actually the first interview I would have done.
Okay, good stuff.
About this.
Exclusive.
Yeah, we've got an exclusive, Charlotte, but also it gives you a bit of practice.
It does, but also we haven't like green-lighted it with the PR, so she might be like, Charlotte, that's not how we're talking about it, but we're just going to talk about it. Hence why there's lots of in this one. But here we go. So what we do now is we still look after talent, and that is run by Head of Talent, Anna Williams, who happens to be my sister and an incredible talent manager. And then we have the training, which is something I look after, and I help brands and individuals understand influencer marketing and inclusive marketing. So the reason I started the agency was to really bring diversity and inclusion to the forefront of the influencer conversation. I have worked in the influencer space for about 8 years and have been an influencer for just over 10 years, 11 years now. 2022. So I am a bit of an influencer hybrid. I know what goes on as an influencer, but also behind the scenes, which is quite rare, I think, in the influencer space, because normally you choose one or the other and you go for it, where I've chosen to do both. And it means that I get to really understand the pain points, both of the client and the influencer themselves. So one thing I realized in 2018 when I went freelance was that there was a real lack of diversity in the influencer space. I think because I'd worked for global brands and I headed the digital for those brands, I knew what we were doing as brands, but I wasn't really looking at other people. So when I was freelance, I was able to do more influencer work because I wasn't bound to my desk anymore. So I was invited to, be part of lots more campaigns and go to dinners and events more than I would normally. Because I could just accept it and go. And I realized that a lot of the time I was one of the only people of color in the room, not just Black women, but a person of color, which is a whole demographic, like a multiple demographics in one, which is just really, it just really confused me, because I was like, okay, maybe this is a mistake. And then as time went on, I was like, no, this isn't. This is just, it keeps happening. And then I had friends who were influencers who fit into like a minority group, and they'd say, oh, I was the only Black woman in the room, oh, I was the only plus size woman in the room, oh, I was the only LGBT person in the room. And I was just like, what is going on, and why are these brands not focusing on a wider audience? Because to me, it just made financial sense. It wasn't even about, obviously ethically, it's really important, and that is embedded in me as a person of color, as a Black woman, but in a marketing sense, I was like, you're missing a whole load of demographics, meaning you're missing loads of money. Like, this is just silly. So I spoke to lots of friends and family members and basically got bullied into starting my agency, because I hadn't run a business before. I just really started freelancing, and I didn't think I wanted to do it for long. And then I kind of had this idea, and then it was like, bam, okay, I started an agency, never actually working in an agency before, so having no idea what that meant. And roll on. So that was 2019 that we officially started in February, and now it's 2022, and we are still going, slightly different now to how we started, which is just I don't know, an evolution of what the business business is and what people that we work with need. So the training side has always been really important, and now more than ever we're doing more and more. The talent side, we have a small roster that Rihanna works really hard with, and they're all people of color from all different categories within the influencer space, so really representing. And then the influencer network is my baby, which is a community of influencers. We've got just under 1,000 at the moment, and we launched it in 2020, and we haven't done that much for them. And I feel that we do a lot of pairing brands and influencers together, so we do a lot of that. And in 2020, in the beginning of 2021, we did a lot of educational events and workshops, but then we got so busy towards the middle of 2021 that we just stopped. So 2022, there'll be regular, starting from March, there'll be regular events, regular weekly emails, and it's becoming a subscription model so that influencers can really get that support that they need. So they log into the portal, and whether or not, it's a personal journey of understanding their finances or need legal help or whatever that might be, maybe a life coach, they can log in and then book a one-to-one session with someone. Or it might just be a case of, I really need to know how to use Instagram properly, or my reels aren't performing. Why is that? So we work with Facebook and the Meta world. I don't really know how we're framing that name right now, but working with Meta, with all their individual companies, Facebook and Instagram, WhatsApp, etc., to kind of spread the message for them, to help them really get good content from the creators out there. And that's really what I'm working on at the moment, which is really exciting. And that's exclusive because I haven't told anyone. It's not even launched.
I'm glad we got this exclusive. Ben, were you going to ask a question? Or
No, just fantastic. I love hearing stories like this. So, like, as Am and I started businesses and like to think we're quite entrepreneurial. It's great to hear success stories from people who are passionate about something. You can tell the way you've explained that, and so I love hearing it, and I love sharing that kind of story. But I guess what I'd say is I'm glad that you were bullied into it, because it's a bit niche and it's something new, and it's something that needs to be done. And yeah, good for you, Charlotte. Really good.
Yeah, really good for you. I'm really glad. I was really impressed when I came with the book launch. When I met you, I was just impressed by the passion that was coming out. Like, it's funny. I work, as you know, we work in technology, software engineering, and when I talk about software engineering and technology in general, I do get quite passionate, and people sometimes don't understand the passion, because some people that don't come from our world think it's a little bit boring. Whereas I get really passionate, and it leads me to my next question. Actually, it's not more of a question, it's more of a discussion point. But I understand what an influencer is. Ben probably understands what an influencer is, but just in a nutshell, could you tell our listeners that maybe don't understand what an influencer is, what one is?
Well, the word influencer, it's very much a generic term. It really just means somebody who, in modern terms, somebody who has a platform, be that Instagram, it could be Facebook, could be LinkedIn, a platform where they share information about services or products, and they influence people into making a decision, be that a purchasing decision. Or we worked with Greenpeace a couple of years ago, and that was influencing people into deciding on whether or not to sign a petition. It could be so many things. I think when we think about influencers as general, but if an influencer is in the Daily Mail, let's say, it will be a Love Island ex-contestant. It's a game show. A Love Island person who is promoting some kind of product. It's probably something like some kind of supplement or a beauty product, and they're posting it on their Instagram and they're encouraging people to purchase it. And that is, I think, what we now traditionally see as an influencer. But there's so many things that you could be an influencer in. So I am an influencer myself, and I work in the lifestyle and entrepreneurial space. So I talk a lot about being a business owner, being an entrepreneur. I don't create business focused content because that's not something I personally want to do. But when people come onto my channel, it's very clear that I run a business and I'm able to give them advice on that. And then I also talk about my life. I'm currently doing a wine course, training to be a sommelier, because I just really love wine. And I can give people tips on that. I love beauty products and fashion. So you see a lot of my life. but I'm still doing, you know, paid advertisements with brands, pushing some kind of service or product. And I think my type of influencing is what we're going to see more of, less kind of product in your face. If I don't know if there's going to be a video, but this is me holding up a product, and more about helping people make, you know, choices in their life, be that about what they want to wear on the weekend or which, you know, internet provider they should go with.
And you know what, I'm going to bring it into technology a little bit now, because I think there's stigma attached to influencers. I think there is.
Oh, massively.
And it's unfair. And I think in this kind of younger generation as well, they want to become influencers, but they don't understand the hard work behind becoming an influencer and the amount of work that goes into that. They just see the end product, which is the picture. But one of I don't think this person would call themselves an influencer, but obviously we work with cloud providers, and one of the cloud providers I've worked with in the past quite closely with it is Amazon AWS. And there was a gentleman I used to work with called Adrian, and he was everything you could possibly know about AWS. He's done all the core, he just was a guru in AWS. So he would do talks and people would change their mind or perception on that particular product in technology. I would call him an influencer. I'm not sure if he would call himself an influencer.
Yeah.
I definitely think he's an influencer. So I think influencers can come in all different spaces, and you might even not be aware of the influence you are having when you're speaking so passionately about something. 100%.
And I also think that influencer is a dirty word, and not to bore the audience, but there's actually a really good book on this that my friend wrote. We weren't friends when she wrote it. We are now good friends through business, but it's called Influence by Sarah McCorkdale. And whenever anyone joined my company, or joins, I guess it still exists, joins my company, I make them read the book, and it's basically the history of influencer marketing. And something that I realized really early on is that the influencer space started in the UK in like 2009. We started seeing bloggers and YouTubers, and it was a real moment of like a shift of culture and a shift of media. And blogs have been around forever, since the 90s or even before. I don't know. Blogs started years and years ago, but they weren't how they were then. So like 2009 came and there were lots of fashion bloggers talking about products. A lot of them weren't being paid. They were in it because they just wanted to find their community. They just wanted to find like-minded people and talk about lipsticks, makeup, fashion, whatever it might be, music. And they just wanted to have those areas. That's why Tumblr was really big at that time.
Yeah, that's right.
And then brands started to pick up on that, and they started seeing how they can capitalize on this kind of free workforce. And journalists were obviously there doing their job, but influencers then started to get invited to Fashion Week and to go behind the scenes with beauty brands to understand the products so that they can be featured on the blogs and the YouTube channels of these influencers, but at the time not called influencers. And journalists started to hate influencers. And you could see, if you look back at articles from that time, it was just such a like disregard for what the influencers were actually doing, or the bloggers, really, we should call them at that time, bloggers and YouTubers, what they were doing, and the what they were bringing to the brand's table, and what they were able to do in terms of product sales and things like that. So there was this real disdain for influencers from journalists, and I totally understand why. They were stealing their jobs. And then as time gone on, you can just see, you know, if you see articles in like the Daily Mail of how influencers are spoken about, it's never really positive.
No,
it's always quite really negative. And there's been studies that show that the general public actually hate influencers. This is a very strong word, but they hate influencers. But there's also studies that show that the general public like influencer content. So actually, they hate the idea of an influencer. They hate the word. They hate what's been sold to them as an influencer. But they actually don't mind the ads. They buy from them. They follow them.
And what's really interesting is the concept of like a brand ambassador versus influencer, which I think is is the same thing. We've got like, if we take something that, Ben, you're passionate about football, very passionate about football, there'll be, I don't know, somebody might go and like partner with Nike or with Adidas or whomever, and, you know, advertise some football boots or some shorts or a jacket, and then the market goes running to buy it. That is influencing. That's exactly what it's, brand ambassador.
Yeah, and that's something that I've always wanted to wear like Nike boots from, like, you know, when I was a teenager, or Adidas it was with David Beckham, and yeah, so you're absolutely right.
There we go.
I think exactly, and that was you know, yeah, that was, so we're going back over 20 years, and that was the same kind of thing. But what's interesting for me is so I'm friends with a couple of, I guess we say, influencers, but they're quite, and this is where it comes quite interesting. They get offered lots of different things to kind of promote and advertise, but they're more in the health and fitness industry, I guess. So they're quite particular about, yes, we'll partner with a brand, but it has to be something that they actually believe in and that they like. And I think that's something that, you know, it comes drawing it back to us and Amardeep. Like Ams is I'm the middle-aged white guy here. Ams is the ambassador for our business. Ams a female leader in technology, where there's a stigma about. Indian nationality, and, you know, people are looking up to Amardeep, and this is what, you know, giving us a platform now to, you know, we want to drive change and create change, which is why it's so you know, your story is so interesting, I think, with the message that you're sending. So
love that. But everyone can be an influencer, anyone can be an influencer, and to be a professional influencer you just need to be paid, and that payment could be in product. You know, it could be in kind, it could be in money. It doesn't matter. You know, I'm currently talking through taxes with influencers. We've just done the tax period's just finished, but I didn't realize how many people just still didn't understand the rules and regulations behind what we can and cannot expense. And, you know, if we get products gifted to us and we are telling the brands that we will do a post or we will talk about it, then that is a contract, and we are being paid in kind by the brand. So we have to declare that in our tax return. And that's, I think, the only difference between ambassadors, unofficial ambassadors, or ambassadors who aren't being paid as an influencer compared to an influencer. It's just, we know the legalities now.
Yeah. I've got it's a topic to bring it onto into technology, and I'm really, really interested to see your opinion, Charlotte. So technology, I find, can sometimes be received by an audience as a little bit bland and boring and not very sexy. However, I try to make it a little bit more sexy. And quite often what people forget about influencing and influencers, brand ambassadors, that whole space is, if you have a technology project that you need to deliver, and it's being fueled by a marketing team in a company, let's say, for example, we're building an app, something we all know. Let's go with, I'm just trying to think of any brand. Let's just do Nike. So we're building a project for Nike, and we're going to rebrand them completely. So we're doing all software engineering in the background, but there'll be a marketing team that's driving campaigns, like on the TV, billboards, all this kind of campaign, and that will be probably have some brand ambassadors or influencers supporting it. So they will need to get influencers in there. So it all kind of pieces together. Technology is being driven. Let's say we're building the application, and then we've got the marketing team, and then we've got these influencers at the end of it. How would you see an influencer, for example, dropping into a space a bit smaller, like our consultancy? Do you feel there's a need? Because I always think about it a lot, because I'm of the generation of influencers, and I'll be honest, if I could be an influencer, I'd love that. But I always think, how do I pull in an influencer? And I go back to Adrian, I go back to that man who, for me, was an influencer, just not what we think an influencer is, but he was in his own right and could be paid to do it.
So a friend of mine, Ashita, she runs a company called By Rotation. They're a fashion rental platform, but also social platform. They're very much social first. So something I love about her company is that she always says she's not a fashion founder, she's a tech founder. And she always says that their biggest misconception is that they're like all about fashion. In fact, they are a community-led company. So, and community first. And this is something that I've always been about community. If you look back at my previous roles, I used to head the digital side of Hello Kitty for Sanrio in the EMEA markets. I worked for Wild Nails, which is a like cult beauty brand in London. I also used to work more on your side for an e-learning company where I was the head of marketing and did all things community. I used to work with the celebrities and influencers of the e-learning.
Oh, excellent.
Flying people over from there was none in the UK, so I had to fly them over from America. But it's always been about community. And I think that's always been my viewpoint on successful businesses, no matter which area they sit in or industry, is community. It's like, who are you speaking to? Who actually cares about your product? It doesn't matter if it's like the most boring product in the world. Does it do something to help someone? If it does, people need to speak about it. People need to be involved. Who are those people? So something I love about Ashita, and I'm always listening to how she speaks about her company, is that she just always gets people involved. And she's just hired someone recently that is one of their super users of the app. Yeah. And I was just like, oh my God, I was just with her over lunch, and I was just like, you're so focused on community. This is so amazing. Like your first big hire is someone who actually uses your product. Yeah. And I think this is what we need to think about. So building that community, that network of people that use your products, be that they've bought it, or be that you've offered them a free trial, or you know, an introduction to the product to get them hooked, and then they realize how amazing it is, or your service, and then boom, you're in. But then keeping up to date with what their needs are, what their pain points are, what they think of the product, how it can be improved, and just being focused on those people, be that 2 people, 5, 10, 15, you know, it can grow and grow. But if you find your target audience, with marketing, we always talk about, you know, knowing your customer personas. And I think people forget how important that is. So if you've got your personas down, and which is essentially the people that make up your kind of your buyers, people who's going to buy your product. Once you've got those down, you can then create your community around those people, and then give them what they want and need. And if they're happy, they will become evangelists. There's this man called Guy Kawasowski. I can't remember what his surname is actually, but he was head evangelist of Canva in I think that was his job title in it was when I worked in the e-learning world, so in 2014. And he did a really great keynote at this festival I went to in Boston, and he was just talking about community and community driving, and you know, having these evangelists. It was so I'd never even heard of marketing evangelists at that time, and I was doing a lot of growth marketing because I was working for a UK American company, and we're really trying to do, you know, growth. And in the States, that's all they were talking about, these evangelists, people who are just going to talk about your company no matter whether or not you're paying them. And I think because I learned marketing from Americans, that's always led to how I do things. So it's very much around community evangelism.
And I think it goes back to the old age-old thing of word of mouth, because that is basically what it is. Your biggest influencers are word of mouth, and that's not just applying to business and technology and influencers. That's in life as well, with relationships. 100%. How somebody talks about me to their friends or to their family is a real telling of who I actually am, because that's what perception I've given to them. So word of mouth is always interesting for me. And do you work in the space of so you've got your influencers, and I know you work in a market that represents underrepresented people in whichever category that might be. Have you ever worked with influencers that are a little bit more niche, I guess, like my Adrian persona that I've talked about, who is, you know, a technologist at heart, wouldn't probably call himself an influencer, but can capture an audience and sell a product? We do a lot of that. We get some funny briefs from clients
Like we had one last year that the girls were like, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. It was like 3 in a row. And each time we were like, oh my God, there's someone for everywhere. We've got it. And there was like one that was like, they specifically wanted like a Somalian man who was really into gaming. And we were like, okay. So we like went out to our network and there was like 4 in the network. We were like,
oh,
okay.
excellent.
So we put someone forward. And then there was another one. It was like, we want a Southeast Asian American woman who lives in the UK to come in to
so
do
specific.
Yeah, something for a tech brand to help them with some like AI stuff.
Yeah.
And we had one person because
Well,
the American thing.
This is the incredible
interesting.
thing. It's incredible, isn't it? Because we always talk about underrepresentation in the UK in technology specifically, and actually we did a great podcast with Pavel. He's the global account director from TikTok. It just went out to I say today, but we record with this is confusing for our listeners.
Today in the past.
And he talks a lot about underrepresentation. Actually, he works firmly in that technology space, and just thinking about the fact that somebody can call you and say, we want a male Somalian gamer. And you find that person and bam, we've got an influencer, we've got a brand ambassador, speaks just massively for exactly what we were talking about. And I always think about when we 2022 sees a lot of events for us as well at Amardeep. And me and Ben are probably going to organise them. But we always talk about who our keynote speakers want to be, because we also want to make sure we pick the right person. It's really hard balance of the right person with the right amount of knowledge versus someone who's a community that's underrepresented. I don't know if I said that correctly. Because we also want to attract clients and employees to work for us that are all welcome. So it's a really, really hard, it's hard to balance that, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah, I think in technology, it's interesting because a lot of the time, when you're in the talent space, when you're hiring for companies, sometimes people will go and work for a company for one particular guy because he's done an article or he's followed. But I think in general, technologists are fairly shy, maybe introverts, and they don't want to be these kind of influence people, but people still follow them because they look up to them. So like we find that quite a bit. But it's interesting to talk about the community side as well, because that's what we are. We are like a technical leader community. And this is where kind of like everyone shares ideas and and kind of that's how technology works through innovation and community. But I think there's not enough people, to be honest with you, who maybe don't realise they're influencers in technology.
Yeah. No, I don't think there is, and I think it's because of when we go right back to the beginning of the conversation, this kind of stigma attached to you're an ex-Love Island contestant, and people hate influencers, but they love the content, and I think. So people will just like disassociate themselves from the word influencer. And like one that's had like loads of like beef in the news and press at the moment is Molly May, who actually came out of Love Island, did incredibly well, made some comments in an interview, and has just been like brought to her knees for those comments. And I think that's why people just are like, it's not me, it's not me, it's not me, or they go straight to the Kardashians. So it's a funny old thing to say. I work in technology and I code all day and I'm an influencer. But actually, there's quite a few because the reason we run to these partners like the AWS or the Google, all the cloud providers I'm giving you an example of, is because there's someone in that space that's influenced us, and now we want to work with that brand, essentially.
Definitely.
How do you see this year panning out then? So obviously it's post-pandemic. During the pandemic, has there been more of a demand, do you say, where people have been more social and more online?
Oh my goodness, yes. So we saw such a boom in April of 2020. So March was really scary for so many brands and people in general. And I was doing a lot of one-to-ones with so many creatives, just trying to help them figure out how to use digital platforms to make an income. Because, stylists were out of work, and basically anyone on a production set was out of work. There was so much going on. And I was just trying to help people out, just to be like, you can still make money. You can, like, it might not be maybe as much as you're making now because you don't have a huge following, but there's still, you know, lots that we can do. And everyone was really worried. And I was working with quite a few brands at the time on social media strategy and influencer strategy. And everyone shut down for like 2 weeks. And then April came and they all shifted their budgets and they all got like a control over what was going on. And then boom, everyone wanted to move to digital. So influencers played a really big part because it was a lot of paid social, like Facebook ads and things like that. But then also influencer and ambassadorships and just online content to there was two sides. There was either content creation, so using content creators and influencers to make social media and website assets because they couldn't do anything in a studio. And that was a really interesting time. I actually really enjoyed that time because it was like pairing people and brands together, and then just like random tiny influencers that I've never really had work before but have a really good camera, setting up you know, product like handbags and shoes in their living room with a backdrop and like making the most incredible.
It was great, wasn't it?
But way better than what people were doing in these studios and paying tens of thousands of pounds for. So it was mind blowing. And then the second side was that reach, that hiring influencers to showcase products, to really get out there, because people weren't able to go into stores anymore. They weren't able to see the products. They really needed to get eyes on their products and services. So yeah, 2020 saw a massive boom. 2021, we were really busy. And then now, so 2022, I haven't looked at the most recent numbers, but 2022, the influencer space, we should have hit, what was the numbers? I think it was 12 million pounds as like a industry. We're gonna have to take this out actually, because I don't know the numbers off my head. I literally wrote this yesterday. I can't remember what it is. But 2022 has boomed so much. I think we're going to surpass it. So I'll check the numbers and put it in the show notes. But as an industry, we are just going above and beyond. We're outperforming what was meant to be there, which is really interesting because the influencer industry is part of the advertising industry. And we're always a bit like shunned. Advertising and paid social, it's all really important, and influence is just this additional thing. But actually it's one of the most important pillars now in the market.
I think so.
So it's like, it's still so like embarrassing for so many people, but also it's like so important for so many people's strategy. So there's like this weird, like, is it?
I think it will shift. I think since we've been on, we've had to go online, and if you look back at some of my earlier content, I've never really done online content. I've never had never really had social at all either. But I had to start doing it in the pandemic when we originally opened the consultancy, and I look back at what I started doing in my kind of bedroom or in the front room, like to try and get some work for the consultancy for Amardeep. And then I think, like, fast forward a month and I've got a ring light now, and I've got this, and then as the month's gone, I've got all this, I've got this big setup, I've got a microphone, I've got everything, but my content has got better. And actually a lot of the great relationships we've made and most of the work we are doing with our clients is through what I've done on LinkedIn, so I can't fault it. So I think hopefully technology will catch up and at least the people that are already influencers will realize and call themselves an influencer in technology. But yeah, thank you so much, Charlotte. We've really enjoyed having you today. It's been excellent. And I'm really excited to see what you're going to be doing in 2022.
Yes, me too.
Just a quick point for me. If we obviously our network, and I guess, you know, dare to call myself an influencer, but within technology,
we're all influencers.
We're all influencers. And do you know what? Everything you say there is like, yeah, we completely start, you know, when we started the business and when, you know, when the recruitment world dried up and I just started doing a podcast in my bedroom and how I started to, this is why we're even here now. It's just all evolved, and it's fantastic. It's you know, really interesting journey. But obviously we do have big followers on LinkedIn and, you know, more within the technology space. Are you open for people reaching out to you, especially, you know, after hearing this and maybe see themselves know that in terms of the position that they're in? We've got some very, you know, big kind of CIOs of some very big businesses that we're you know, connected to, and I think that they'll actually take a lot from this and the kind of message that you're trying to give. Are you okay for people to reach out to you? Is LinkedIn a good way?
we're something we're working on at the moment. So like obviously there's two sides to the business. It's helping influencers, but also helping brands. But on the influencer side, if it's something you're thinking about and you just don't really understand it, we're currently building a little course which is around just making sure your social media is set up as a founder to showcase who you are in a way that isn't cringy and influency, like this traditional influencer set, but also is putting you out there to give opportunity if you did want to, you know, work on paid partnerships or do things in a, you know, in a founder way. So there's that we're working on at the moment. I think it's going to launch in March, but yeah, we're
Amardeep's already looking to sign up.
I can't wait. I'm going to be like, Charlotte, I want to be a technology influencer.
I'll send you a link.
Your first customer now, absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, so reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Charlotte. Charlotte Williams is my name. I'm getting married in a couple of months. So I was like, it's my name for now.
Congratulations.
But Charlotte Williams is my name on, I think I'm Charlotte-SevenSix on LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out to me, and Charlotte7six on Instagram as well.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, Charlotte.
Thank you.
Look forward to speaking to you soon. All the best.
Thanks. Bye.